Otangelo, one more time. Otangelo, are you there? No. All right. I think it might be a problem with his connection today. So I'm going to go ahead and...
Yeah, hello.
Oh,
Yay.
hey, there you are. Hi. How are you doing?
Fine, thanks.
Have you been able to hear the show up to this point?
Yeah, I just saw that my microphone on my Skype was set off, so you didn't hear me.
Yeah, okay. I wasn't ignoring you. Eric told me that you had said you were waiting to call back until he was on again. I said this earlier in the show. I'm not going to take it personally if you are going to wait until he's back next week to have the conversation, because the conversation that we had last week, I sort of drove us down a rabbit trail about sand and sandcastles, and I think you wanted to get on to cellular complexity.
Yes,
Okay.
can be this. I have many issues that we can talk about. So,
Okay.
and it can be with Eric on the show or with you, and
Okay.
no problem with me. Whatever you.
I don't have a problem with you. What I will say is let's do a little bit of a recap before we launch in, because I know that, Shelley wasn't here next week, and you're like a rock star, so you don't have time to watch our show or whatever. So I knew I'd get that smile. So we were talking about, or at least it seemed like you wanted to talk about irreducible complexity as a reason to believe in intelligent design. Is that a fair summary?
This is one. This is one of many issues that we can talk about. I suggested this as a topic, which I think is an amazing issue, which points to God.
Okay, so do you mean a God in general, or specifically, a Christian God, or?
Oh, I think that the design argument does not point to a specific God. It just demonstrates that design is observed in nature, and as such points to an intelligent designer.
Okay, so do we know anything about this designer?
Yes, but this is not an argument for a specific God.
Okay.
It just points to a designer.
And
That's
is
all.
it a God, the designer?
Yeah. So I know that you're not
Well,
saying,
that's
and therefore
that,
Jesus, you're saying, and therefore a God. And I'm sort of asking, well, do we know whether it's one God or two, whether the God is male, these kinds of things? Like what is it that we can, what is it that we know about God, as you're using the word in this sentence?
My methodology is not to start off with saying it's the God of the Bible.
Okay.
Despite I am being an evangelical Christian and I believe in Jesus, I believe in the New Testament, the Old Testament, I believe that the Bible is the Word of God.
Right.
But I do not like to start to talk with someone that is not a believer specifically about the God of the Bible. I think it makes not much sense if an unbeliever does not believe that a creator exists. So I prefer first to check out, as I tried in my last call, to set the framework to say either there is a God or there is not.
So,
and when we know what we are trying to figure out, then we can establish what makes more sense. Does it make more sense that a God exists, or does it make more sense that a God does not exist? And what I have here...
Otangelo, really quickly, I just have sort of two really quick things. So the reason that I keep bringing up what do you mean by God is not to try and talk to you about Jesus or specifically the Bible, because I know, as you've said before, that an argument from design doesn't point to God, doesn't point to Jesus specifically. That the God that you believe exists, being Jesus, is a separate part of this. But when you say the argument from design points to a God, I'm just sort of curious which aspects of that God you can conclude. So as an example of what I'm trying to say is, if there were two detectives at the scene of a murder, and one of them said, I can tell you what the getaway car looked like based on tire tracks and where it went. And the other one went, oh, okay, what does the getaway car look like? Before you walk me through the methodology of testing the rubber of the tires and how far apart the tires are. I'm not a homicide detective, but I assume those are things that they test. So can you tell me, is it a lime green skylark, or like, does the God still interview? What is it that we can learn about God through the argument from design? Tell me what I'm going to learn and then teach you.
I think the only issue that we have to address by this is there an intelligent creator beyond all creation, or is there no God?
So beyond all creation, what do you mean by beyond all creation? Do you mean the life on this planet?
Beyond the physical universe.
So not physical. Because I mean that's perfect. I'm glad I was able to communicate my question. So God, the God that we can discern exists from the argument from design is intelligent. You're not using the phrase all powerful, and I'm not trying to trap you, but powerful enough, created the universe. And is there like a level of, do we know how powerful the God is, whether the God still interacts with the universe? If we don't know that from design, we can leave it. But
of course, he must be powerful enough to create the universe and everything that is in it. And
you say he. Is
I
there a
believe
reason?
that since I believe in the God of the Bible, I believe that he interacts with us, that he is all-knowing.
Okay.
But this is also not
related to
that
design.
We want to treat. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So let's focus on design. I mean, you Shelley's brought up the point that you're using the word he to describe God. Presumably, that's the male gender is an attribute you assign to God because you believe in Jesus and not because you believe in a creator, right?
Yes, but as I said, I think this is not something that matters in regard of this argument.
Okay. So is which part of the argument from irreducible complexity did you want to talk about today?
Okay, I would like to start first with a question, which I don't know if you are, what kind of expertise or knowledge that you have about biology, nature, and everything else. But I will start with this question. What is the main energy source of the Earth?
So, okay, the sun. Sorry, I've not heard that question phrased in that way. So
yes, correct.
The energy that we get comes
sun.
from the sun.
The sun.
Yeah.
Okay. So how does that energy be transformed in chemical energy?
Through photosynthesis, largely by transforming ADT into ATP.
Okay, great.
I think I've butchered the letters there, but I've made my high school biology teacher very proud.
Okay, great. Now, I want to make another question to you. Solar panels require very complex manufacturing processes through factories. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you have just a solar panel and you do not have all the other parts of a photovoltaic system, your solar panel has no function. Is that correct?
I mean, I don't really have a working knowledge of solar panels. However, I'm willing to say, for the sake of conversation, if you don't have all the parts, it doesn't work.
You need an inverter, you need batteries to store the energy, you need more 5 parts. When the solar energy hits the solar panels, then that energy is transformed in electricity, and you need other parts to store that energy, okay?
Yeah, you have to have batteries to store the energy.
Okay, so if you have only the solar panels, you have no function for them. You need the other parts of the photovoltaic system in order that your system provides you the energy that is usable afterwards.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. If you don't have all the parts of the machine, it doesn't function the way that you would like it to.
Right. Right. So what does that mean? That means that if you make a complex factory and manufacture solar panels, but do not manufacture at the same time all the other parts of the photovoltaic system to, at the final end, have the storage of the energy in the batteries in usable form, then your solar panels and the whole factory have no use.
They would produce something that doesn't function the way that you would want if you had a solar panel.
You have no use for them. If you have only your solar panels, but you have not the other 5 parts of the photovoltaic system, you have no function. You have no use for these solar panels. So nobody in its sane mind would project a factory and solar panels and just produce these without the other parts of your photovoltaic system.
Sure. Yeah. I understand the point that you have made. I agree.
So
I'm assuming that you're not going to unless there's 2 manufacturers and they manufacture different parts and they're put together.
Now we can make an analogy, an argument from analogy between a photovoltaic system and photosynthesis.
So,
what do I mean with that?
So, Otangelo, really quickly, you've used the phrase "argument from analogy." That phrase is the literal name of an informal logical fallacy. Like because you can analogize 2 things does not mean that necessarily they work in the way that you would analogize for the same reasons. So, if you would like to underline the point of the argument that you're going to make with the analogy, I'm happy to have you explain the various functions of, spoiler alert, I think, the functioning of an individual cell, saying that, it functions in a way similar to a solar panel, but I don't think that alone as an argument is sufficient.
I would not have gone in this direction.
Okay,
if you permit
then
me.
I'm sorry for interrupting.
Then you will understand what I want to say.
Mm-hmm.
So Herschel was a scientist in the 19th century, and he came up with this argument used in science, which is the argument from analogy. And it goes like this. If you have 2 objects, of which one object, its origin is very obvious and known, and you have a second object which is very similar in function, form, and everything else, then it makes much sense to infer that this object, which we do not know the origin of it, much probably has the same origin as the object which we know its origin.
So you're saying that man invented photosynthesis.
Analogy.
So, Otangelo, let me just go ahead and share my thoughts on that portion of the argument. So I think now is a good time to talk about the strength and weight of evidence and argument as far as how much it should affect confidence in your belief, right? Because we live in a world where belief isn't binary. It's not, you either definitely believe this or definitely don't. You can be pretty sure, you can be more sure of one thing than another. I believe that I'm gonna eat dinner here at the ACA tonight, and I believe that right now I'm on Talk Heathen. I'm very confident in both of these beliefs, but I'm much more confident in my belief that right now I'm talking to a camera than my belief that definitely there will be dinner later because, there's a few hours, maybe something happens, who knows? We have dinner here every Sunday at 6 p.m. as a community dinner, which is what I'm talking about for context. So if I'm presented with something I don't understand, right, like a biological function, a part of an organism that we've just discovered. We've just discovered a new kind of grasshopper-like thing, and it has what look like wings on the back of it, right? They are placed in such a way that we would understand that, oh, okay, these wings moving in this way, we would understand how this creature, we have a dead specimen, could use these to fly. My ability to infer, oh, okay, well, because I know how insects use wings and how those wings have evolved over time, for a biologist to infer this creature probably flies with these wings, I think is reasonable. It's one of the ways that we can infer lots of the things that, it's one of the ways that paleontologists infer and come to conclusions about, dinosaurs and long dead creatures, because they can tell, oh, okay, this creature had hollow bones and had, wings, and so probably these are things that we see in birds that allow them to fly, even though they have bones that are usually heavy. So that argument, I think, is relatively sensible. The point that I would make is it's not as strong of evidence as I'm looking at a camera and right below it there's a monitor, so I can see that I'm on Talk Heathen right now. And it certainly doesn't tell me anything other than, well, I think that this creature that I know evolved these wings to use in the same purpose as another creature that I have to compare it to in nature. If that's the crux of your argument, then I think we can proceed, because I know that I agree.
I would like to illustrate my argument with another example. Okay.
Okay, just really quickly before you go on, I am pretty confident that I've understood what you've said and that I've communicated back what I've heard. Am I following you correctly with the point you're making?
Well, you came up with a lot of things which have nothing to do with the point which I would like to make.
Okay. Well, what is the point?
So I would like to make another illustration which makes more clear what I said about the argument from analogy.
Okay.
That is, if you arrive at a car park and you see there are two cars, and one car is a car which you well know, with the manufacturer, the brand, and everything else. And you see a second car which you never saw before. You don't know the brand, you don't know the manufacturer, you don't know who made it. But it is a very similar car to the first car which you well know. Mm-hmm. So now you have two possibilities here. You can infer that intelligence made the car, the second car, or you can infer that unknown forces made it, and you say, oh, I don't know who made it. Mm-hmm. So what would you think is the logical answer? Would you say, oh, I think another manufacturer, maybe from China or from somewhere else, made that second car, even if you don't know the brand, I don't know where it was made, I don't know nothing about the builder, but I know that a company must have built the car as well. Would you say that is a more logical answer, or would it be, oh, I don't know, I have no idea.
So there's
second car.
Two parts to the response I want to give, which is, one, in the example, you've said, I go to a car park and I recognize that there are two cars there. So
yes.
I wouldn't call something that occurred naturally a car. So when you say you see it and it's a car and you don't know where it was made, do you think it was made naturally? Well, the fact that you're calling it a car implies that it wasn't.
That's not important. That's not a relevant factor.
It is, because
what
you're giving an example of how to determine whether or not the car was created. And the word car, I would only use to describe a very limited set of things, and all of those things are created.
Okay, so I think can recognize that the second car was made by intelligence. Based on your experience at the first car,
so
which you know,
if I recognize that there's...
That's not an argument from analogy.
So if I recognize that a thing is a car, then I recognize it as a thing that has been created by a car manufacturer.
Good. So we agree on this. It makes more sense to say the second car, which you don't know
This is where we
diverge,
Otangelo, because the moment you say, so it makes more sense to believe this, you've kind of lost me a little bit, right? Because there's not a which makes more sense. It's does, one conclusion make sense? Do I have enough reason to believe that this object that I've found in a parking lot in a car park that is next to a car that has four wheels, that has, forks, that looks like cars, that has some branding on the front of it that I don't recognize, that gives every indication of, I would assume that is a car that I don't see. I would conclude it is reasonable to believe that is a car based on that evidence. But what I'm not doing is saying, well, should I believe X or Y? Because if I see an object and I'm not sure what it is, and it is in a car park, but it looks like a solid block of entirely black material with no edges, I would say, I don't know what that is, not, that's definitely not a car. The point at which I don't have enough information to conclude whether or not something was created or whether or not, it's a hunk of junk, I say I don't know. And so that's not a really good way of explaining what I'm trying to get at here. But what I'm trying to get at here is I don't use the approach of, which makes more sense, conclusion A or conclusion B. I come at what am I looking at, and based on past experiences, what, if anything, can I conclude is true about it?
Well, if I would be in this situation and go to the car park and see two cars. If I see the first car and I know it was made by a company in the United States, it's a well-known brand, and I know the car.
Okay.
And I see a next car, and I see a next car to it, which is eventually much better built than the first car. But I don't know the brand, I don't know the factory, I don't know where it was made. I see it the first time. Then it's obvious to me another car manufacturer made that car. Yeah. That is immediately clear to me.
Yes.
And I think it would be to anyone.
Yeah, right? anyone familiar with a car, yes.
Okay.
So
that
can we take that
point
argument and apply it to the universe?
Yeah,
yes, let's go further now.
Okay.
Let's go further now. So we have agreed already on two examples. One I made at the last call, and that one which I'm making here, that we can actually recognize design and make very secure inferences based on knowledge and understanding. And also, I would say, yes, we are intuition machines, and intuitively we can recognize shapes and complexity.
So this is where we disagreed last time, Otangelo, is I don't believe that's something we intuit.
That's not. Yeah, I don't think we should go back to
I agree. I think we should use the example you just used and apply it to the universe.
Let's go. Yes. Now let's go again to photosynthesis. Do you know the molecule which receives photons and light from the sun?
Otangelo, really quick, because I think your example with the two cars is a perfect way for me to illustrate one of the points I'd like to make. So you've given an example of you see a car you recognize and you see a car you don't, but you can, even though you don't know the manufacturer, infer based on your previous knowledge and understanding of cars and the manufacturing process, infer that it was made by a car manufacturer. The thing that I would point out is part of the conclusion of the argument from complexity is existence, the universe, we'll say, was designed. Where is the universe that you're using to compare it? Because if we were to apply the two-car example as support for the universe is created, what you would have to say is you came and there were two universes. one you knew was created and one that you weren't sure was created but looked exactly like a created universe. I'm saying, why do you believe that the universe looks created if you don't have a universe you know is created to compare it to?
I think I did respond this question also the last time, and I would like to move forward to my argument, Jamie.
I'm not sure that we touched on this, actually.
If you don't remember my response, I will shortly respond again. I think there would be no universe to compare because our universe is, in my view, created. And if you tell me to what kind of universe would you compare it that was not created, then I would say there would be no universe. No. There would be nothing.
Okay, so it sounds like you're saying there can be nothing that exists that wasn't created.
Yes.
Okay, how did you come to that conclusion?
Because, well, Jamie, we will come back to the same arguments.
I think this is at the root of the. This is the root of the argument. If you're saying that nothing can exist without being created, again. If I'm not on the same page as you, hold on really quick, Otangelo. I would like to focus on that point because I don't see any way for you to come to that conclusion at all. And it's going to be at the root of everything else we talk about. How can you determine that existence is impossible without creation?
Because our universe had a beginning, and everything that begins to exist has a cause.
Okay, so how can we come to the conclusion that nothing can begin to exist without a cause?
It can't, because nothing has no power of creating something, because it's the absence of anything.
So, if you're saying there was nothing there, I'm sorry. Can you reiterate your response a little bit? Because I'm not sure how that answers my question.
Okay.
I don't want to just
something cannot come from absolutely nothing.
So if there's a creator.
So to be clear, are you arguing that existence had a beginning or not?
Yes, the universe had a beginning, and this was something that I made very clear.
Okay, so I just wanted to
conclusion.
I just wanted to clarify entirely. But you're now saying, if it had a beginning, it must have had a creator, because nothing can come into existence without a creator. And I'm saying, how can you conclude that? How can you conclude that existence requires a creator?
Because from something cannot come into being.
This is your conclusion.
Absence of anything.
Yeah, this is the conclusion that you're trying to support with evidence and argument. I'm asking, how do you get to that?
I don't need evidence. That is logical. What is nothing?
No.
Nothing is the absence of anything, and nothing has no properties.
You're making statements about there was nothing, and then what we have and exists today was created. And when I'm asking, okay, well, so
no, I didn't say that.
Was existence created?
I said the universe had a beginning.
Okay.
Since it had a beginning, it must have had a cause, because
that's your conclusion.
Something cannot come into existence from absolutely nothing.
This is part of your conclusion. Your conclusion is it must have had a creator. And I'm asking, the principle of nothing can come into existence without a creator, I don't see justification in your argument for this conclusion.
This is very obvious, Jamie. Because nothing is the absence of anything. Nothing has no
That has
property.
nothing to do with it whatsoever. What is the difference, Otangelo, what is the difference between there was nothing and then a God created the universe, and there was nothing and then a universe came to exist?
It's a huge difference, because at the beginning there was an eternal God. a necessary
This is your conclusion.
being.
This is your conclusion.
So then you're saying there wasn't nothing. There wasn't absolutely.
There was a God, is what you're saying.
Yes, of course. Yes.
Okay. So, Otangelo, the
my
conclusion.
basic belief.
Yeah. So, Otangelo, the conclusion of the argument that you need to lay out, if you're trying to persuade me that the universe was created by a God, or that a God exists that created the universe, was the conclusion needs to be, therefore, from these other sets of data or arguments, you can conclude that a God existed and created the universe. And one of the things you're saying is it couldn't have happened any other way.
Correct, yes.
Okay. What led you to that conclusion?
Because something cannot come into existence from absolutely nothing.
Otangelo, do you understand how that is saying exactly the same thing with different words? It does not provide any explanation. You're restating your conclusion.
That's explanation.
No, it's restating the conclusion. I understand what the conclusion is. I do not understand why I should accept it as true.
Because nothing has no potentialities to create universes.
How can I come to believe that that is true? How do we know that that is true?
Because nothing is the absence of anything. Nothing has no properties.
Okay, so are you claiming that there has always been something?
Of course, yes.
Okay. What is that thing that has always been?
A creator.
Okay.
An intelligent, eternal creator.
What led you to the conclusion that the thing that has always existed is an intelligent creator and not unintelligent matter of another kind?
Because to have an effect that comes into existence in time, you need a decision. Otherwise, the effect would be eternally together with the necessary cause.
Okay, so you've now said that in order for something to come into existence, you need a decision, and therefore, a decider or decision maker. Right? I don't know why I should believe that that is true. How do you know that that is true?
Because you cannot have a universe coming into existence without a decision.
So, Otangelo, I think that we're suffering from a miscommunication here, because I've asked you, how can I know that you cannot have a universe come into existence without a God? And you've said, it can't happen, it can't create itself, it requires a God, it requires a decision. And those are very much three different ways of saying, no, it must have happened this way.
Not evidence.
Okay.
Yeah.
Your last question was, why must that cause be a mental, conscient cause? Okay?
An intelligence.
So I will read to you, because it is maybe not so easy for me to explain it in my words. If you permit, I would like to give an answer from William Craig. Is that okay?
How long is the answer that William Craig is about to give?
No, it's a short answer. If the cause of water being frozen is the temperatures being below 0 degrees, then if the temperature were below 0 degrees from eternity, then any water present would be frozen from eternity. The only way to have an eternal cause but a temporal effect would seem to be if the cause is a personal agent who freely chooses to create an effect in time. For example, a man sitting from eternity may will to stand up, hence a temporal effect may arise from an eternity existing agent. Indeed, the agent may will from eternity to create a temporal effect so that no change in the agent need be conceived. Thus, we are brought not merely to the first cause of the universe, but to its personal creator.
Okay. He's arguing along precisely the same lines that you are and not answering my objection, which is, how can you determine that those statements are true? At one point in time in the answer you read, the phrase, I believe it's the end of the first sentence.
Yes.
Can you read the first sentence again, please?
Just a moment. If the cause of waters being frozen is the temperatures being below 0 degrees, then if the temperature were below 0 degrees from eternity, then any water present would be frozen from eternity. The only way to have an eternal cause but a temporal effect would seem to be if the cause is a personal agent who freely chooses to create an effect in time.
Perfect. Because right there what he has said is, well, the only way that we could conclude that there was a cause is if it was this. How can we conclude that there was a cause?
Because from nothing, nothing comes.
Okay. So at this point, I think we've gone around on the same point. Will you call back again next week? Because I think Eric I can see him and he has some thoughts he'd like to share.